Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 5 of Christmas Culture Club. I'm Steve.
And I'm Julie. And we have Rick Dungey with us today from the National Christmas Tree Association. And seeing as how it's finally sweater weather, sort of, the trees are changing here. We're getting ready to kind of move into cooler weather. And my mind's on trees. Actually, my mind's on living in Oregon 10 plus years ago. And all of a sudden, this time of year, I'd be like hanging outside and hearing helicopters. And I couldn't figure out what it was. And I finally talked to a local, and they're like, oh no, those are the Christmas trees being harvested from the farms all around us. So I had no idea, me being a horticulturist and my background being growing plants, and did not know how live Christmas trees were grown. So Rick is here to talk to us about how live Christmas trees go from a farm all across the United States to your home to help you celebrate Christmas.
So, Rick, could you take a couple minutes and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be with the National Christmas Tree Association?
Yeah, so I started actually working with the National Christmas Tree Association way back in 1998. If you can believe that, that's been well over 20 years now. I've been visiting Christmas tree farms and talking to the growers and talking about how great Christmas trees are. So it's really just been it was a steep learning curve. I did not grow up in Oregon. I grew up in Southern Illinois, and there weren't a lot of Christmas tree farms around where I grew up. But it's an easy learning curve. And one of the things that I have found consistently over the years is that Christmas tree farmers are salt of the earth types, super easy to get along with. I've worked with a lot of other ag groups as well. Tree farmers, in my mind, have always been the best at sharing information with each other. Um, Even if they are technically competitors, they still get together. They have great meetings in the summertime and the wintertime, and they actually help each other become better growers. And it's not unique in agriculture, but they have it more than any other ag commodity
So,
that
there's
I've ever.
really not a lot of professional jealousy.
Well, I can't guarantee that, but I can guarantee there is a lot of co-learning. And well, we can get into it, but growing trees, like you said, in Oregon can be dramatically different than growing trees in, say, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
But there are always some things that are common. And so while there's regional specificity, there are some things in common that all growers have. And they do a great job working together to make themselves all better growers.
So, would you say, because being from the Midwest, we tend to see kind of some specific varieties of live trees. Any rough idea how many variations of Christmas trees there are out there of the live variety?
Yeah, easily more than 20. And a lot of them you probably wouldn't be familiar with
Okay.
because they are very regionally specific. There probably are 15 or so that are just not durable enough as a plant to be harvested and sent somewhere, to be sold at a retail lot as a pre-cut. The tree would just get beat up too much. So they're really only sold as a cut your own on small farms, taken home, put it in a stand. Probably about 10 to 12 different varieties or species are
Okay.
tough enough, are durable enough as a plant to be pre-cut and sent to a market somewhere, anywhere around the country, and then sold individually so you can put it up in your home.
So once they're, and I know we've got so many questions, but once a tree's actually cut, how long will it live if it's taken care of properly?
Many variables go into that.
Okay.
But generally you're looking on average, probably around 4 weeks are
Okay.
fine. I've had plenty of people tell me in February that their tree's still up and still taking up water and it hasn't started to turn brown yet. But I also know that there are some that probably won't last more than 3 weeks. If it's in a cold climate, you have a better chance of it lasting longer than if it's in a really warm environment. But, one of the things I always like to tell people is even if you are in a really warm place, like El Paso, Texas, or Miami, Florida, and somebody will say, "Well, gee, it's 85 degrees here. The trees aren't going to last very long." Yeah, but what's it inside your home? It's
Mm-hmm.
probably 73
Yeah.
degrees, the same as it is in my home, even if it's only 40 degrees outside here. So humidity level, temperature, harvest conditions, even as far back as a couple months before the tree was harvested, the conditions that it experienced in the field can impact its keepability and its needle retention.
Okay.
Now,
Ha-
Rick, where are they grown? Like, what are some of the regions around the United States or even Canada that we see trees being grown in?
According to the USDA, there actually are Christmas tree farms in all 50 states, including Hawaii.
Really?
Nice. I love that.
I
They
don't
have
know who they
pineapples
are,
on them, but they're Christmas
but they
trees.
No, they can actually grow some of the cypress, and I think it's, yeah, the cypress species they can grow there. Probably not that many. So the big production areas are the Pacific Northwest, Oregon and Washington. North Carolina is the number 2 producer in the country, and the western part of the state up in the mountains, Southern Virginia and up in the Appalachians, and then all of the Great Lakes states. So really from Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan is a very large producer, Pennsylvania, New York, all up through New England. And in Canadian provinces, Quebec is a big producer, Ontario, all the way over to Nova Scotia. I know there are a lot of tree farms in Nova Scotia that supply markets in, say, Boston and some
Okay.
of the Northeast cities.
It was always interesting. I lived in Northwest Indiana for a number of years, and they had some what I thought were large Christmas tree farms there, but I'm coming to find out that they're just kind of a moderate
No.
size. But it used to be amazing. We lived maybe 5 or 10 miles off of I-65, and if you were anytime, usually late October, early mid-November, you'd see these massive 18-wheelers just laden with Christmas trees going to some destination. So I'm imagining they're coming from somewhere up there in Wisconsin or
Probably
something.
out of Michigan or something like that. So how many acres are planted in Christmas trees? Like, give us some of the like overwhelming stats. Tell us like the crazy numbers.
Yeah, like how many are sold a week?
So we're going off my memory, so take that with a grain of salt. The USDA does an ag census every 5 years, I believe, and 2022 was the last one. I think it said it was right around 14,000 total acres in
Okay.
production in the U.S. Generally speaking, many variables again, terrain, soil type, species you're growing, but on average, you probably get around 1,000 trees per acre in a production field.
Okay.
So say if you have a 10-acre farm, you're probably growing about 10,000 trees at any given time.
But you can only because they've got the life cycle, or it takes what, about 6 years to actually grow onto maturity?
On average. So you're looking at most trees harvested are going to be in that 5 to 7 foot tall range, right? Because most homes have an 8 foot ceiling.
Right.
Oh,
There are bigger, of course, and some people even want a smaller tree. But on average, the bulk of the trees are going to be right around 6 to 7 foot in that size.
And it
How
takes
long it takes them to get there, many variables. Again, looking at 5 to 7 years, generally about a foot per year. They grow faster in the south. So the fir species tend to grow slower. So many factors, but generally, yeah, you're looking at 5 to 7 years from the time the farmer plants the seedling to the time they're ready to get up high enough to where they want to be harvested and sold.
so on any given year they're harvesting about 20% of the crop, 15 to 20% of what they're growing.
That would be on the high end, but yeah.
so
Interesting.
talk to us about the life cycle. Like, what does this look like? Where does it start from? I mean, again, I'm a horticulturist, so this is something that I've
Mhm.
seen firsthand, and I realize this isn't usual knowledge. So talk us through it.
So if you want to go to the very beginning, trees, even all conifer trees have to come from a seed, right? Um, so you have a commercial nursery that actually produces the seeds, and they have trees growing on their land that they want to produce progeny from. They want them to be parent trees. And a lot of times they will even specifically want this tree and that tree to produce progeny. And so they will go and pollinate by hand. When the cones come out and the flowers come out, they'll collect pollen. They put a bag over the flower, shake it around, leave it there for like 2 days until there's a bunch of yellow dust in there. That's the pollen. And then they'll take it and put it over a cone of a tree they want it to produce progeny with, and leave it on there for a couple of days and shake it around. And the resulting seeds contains characteristics and traits that they hope to have in the resulting progeny.
So they're
The tr-
genetically engineering trees.
This
you
is
could
genetically
you could
engineering
say
makes it
that.
sound so bad. This is what Mendel did. This
Yeah,
is
no, no,
like
no.
pea species
I
400,
get it, but I
600
mean,
years ago.
but they are
Yeah.
actively procreating certain
It
traits that
is,
they want in
in
trees.
many cases, it is not left up to nature and chance, is the way that I would express it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so you're looking for your traits and characteristics that you want in trees that you're producing. So fast growth, straight trunk formation, uniform growth, possibly disease resistance, drought resistance. So you're looking for these kinds of traits and characteristics in each subsequent generation of trees so that you can grow better trees and be more profitable as a farm. So the nursery then will collect the cones from their nursery stock. And it's kind of cool. I watched one time, this is many years ago, they take the cones and they put them in a great big drum. It's basically like a big clothes dryer, and they run dry heat over it. And that makes the cone pop out and the seeds come out and they fall through holes. And then some of them are not sterile. Some of them won't produce, actually germinate. And to figure out which ones of those, they actually put them in a barrel of water. The sterile ones will sink, and the ones that won't germinate will float to the top, and they skim those off. So then they take the seeds and they put them in a nursery bed, in a controlled environment, in a greenhouse, into those little tiny little
Plug tray.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, a
That's
plug
what I
tray,
did for years.
and they produce a baby tree. So the nursery will grow the trees until generally at least 2 years. The tree farms like to buy seedlings that are at least 2 foot tall. Most of them have also then been moved out into a transplant bed. And what the tree farm wants is a good solid 2 foot tall seedling that has as well developed root system as possible, so that when they put it in their field, their mortality rate stays really, really low. I mean, if you put 1,000 seedlings in the ground and 800 of them die, that's not good.
No. Yeah.
So they try to get their survivability rate as high as possible. So the Christmas tree farmers actually buy seedlings from nurseries, baby trees, and put them in their field. And then from there, they spend generally 6 to 7 years until they're up to about 6 or 7 foot tall and ready to harvest.
Any idea how many they harvest annually?
About 23, 24 million in that.
Gee.
And
How many times?
because of a real quick, just because there is some mortality no matter what, and many things can actually impact whether or not a tree actually makes it to 7 foot tall. You have pests, you have insects, you have animals, you have soil-borne pathogens. Farmers have to be expert in a lot of things, including protecting the trees. They have to shape them to get them to the shape that they want. It's a lot of work. It's not just put a seedling in the ground and people magically show up and give you money for it later on. So it's because there is some mortality no matter what, they're usually planting extra to account for some of the loss that they're bound to have. So in any given year, Christmas tree farms, just in the US alone, are planting about 30 million new trees every single year.
Wow.
You just mentioned shaping. Can you describe what that is and what the purpose is?
Machetes. It's machetes. It's crazy to see.
Yeah. So again, if left to its own devices, based on many variables, rainfall, whether it's on the south side of a hill or a north side of a hill, I mean, lots of things can impact nutrient level in the soil. How a tree grows and what it looks like can be different. And the farm wants to control that. They want it to look a certain way because their buyers want it to look a way. So you're ultimately trying to produce something that your customers want to buy. And you're looking for the nice shape. So sometimes it's just shearing with a knife, almost like giving it a haircut. One of the main things they have to do is control the leader. So up the very center of the tree at the top, that's where the tree puts a lot of its energy, especially in the springtime when it's growing up. The plant's natural inclination is to get as tall, as
Right.
fast as
Sure.
possible. And so you have to control that. Sometimes they'll have a double leader, and that's bad. You need to snip one of those. And they look for terminal buds to make sure that the branching comes out nice and even. So it's really about, as a horticulturalist, you probably can actually explain it a lot better. You can actually control the way a plant grows.
Yeah.
It's not dissimilar at all to if you're growing tomatoes in your garden. You want to snip off the ones that aren't going to actually produce flowers and fruit. It's the same sort of thing with a tree. You're trying to control the way that the plant puts energy and nutrients into new growth and where that new growth is and what it looks like ultimately when you're ready to sell it.
Yeah.
So
One
it's
of the
it really is
Christmas
very human intensive, right? The labor to do that?
Yes.
But I mean, on the flip side, so like I've managed a ton of different crops in my career path when I was in horticulture. And Christmas trees, these trees only grow at certain times of the year. Like they put out a certain amount of growth and then they're done. So the trimming has to be done at a very appropriate time and it's very seasonal and it's very labor intensive at that time. It's similar to like, hey, it's apple season. We're picking apples for a month. I need my labor pool to be there at that time. For when I lived in Oregon and saw all the trees being trimmed. I mean, these guys, they are a machine. They move as teams of 3 to 5 that they're working around each tree. And typically where
Yeah.
Christmas trees are grown, they like poor soil, they like rocky soil. They can grow on slopes. They can grow on, areas that might not be arable land for like a machinery. So you've got or you've got people that are walking through. And I mean, literally the machetes these guys use were amazing, amazing. And it's just, they're taking a chop down the side of the tree and it's one person who's just making it look like they're cutting through butter. But it's probably 30 years of experience doing it, so they know exactly how to cut it. We're sitting here talking about, terminal buds and leaders. It's like nature for them that they're going to cut this. They know what
I see.
each cut. Yeah. So that's just mind blowing to me.
It's absolutely a developed and learned skill. No
Yeah.
question about it.
It's not unskilled labor going and doing this, you know? And I mean, it's complicated. It's a lot of logistical coordination, getting crews where they need to be. You know, a lot of times, I mean, what I experience in Oregon is that the Christmas tree farms, you'll have 30 acres here, you'll have 40 acres there, you'll have 15 acres here, you know, that are all then owned by a cooperative. So you've got these separate pieces of land that are growing in different ways, but it's all might be the same crop of tree. And then it's coordinated for harvesting. Like, hey, this field, like Vinny's field is on year 6. It's got to have a final trim because it's going to be harvested next year. Whereas, you know, Phil's field is only on year 3. And, you know, we got to shape it and watch the leader right now. So it's fascinating.
So, Rick, typically when you're looking at that, if you've got a Christmas tree farmer, I guess that's the term, on their land, will they have a number of varieties that they're going to have to shape, or will they specialize in a variety or 2 varieties?
So both. The answer is yes to both of those, particularly if you're in an area where you can grow multiple species. You tend to want to do so because it expands your potential customer base. Different markets, you know, you can send different species of trees to different markets. But there are some places, like Julie was saying, depending on the terrain and the soil type, where you really can only successfully produce a monoculture. There really is only 1 or maybe 2 species that can successfully be grown there. And now the other thing that they're doing, and you talked about genetic modification earlier, they're actually crossing some species to produce certain characteristics. So there's a common one now where they've crossed a Fraser fir and a balsam fir. Most for people refer to it as a frosum. Say that fast 3 times.
We get kicked off of
And
YouTube if we did.
because one of the, I mentioned pathogens earlier. One really bad one is called Phytophthora. And it's a fungus. It's a fungus that grows in the soil. And it inhibits a tree's root system from uptaking nutrients, and it literally just chokes off the tree's ability to live. And it can wipe out a whole entire field and really
And it
quickly.
happens so fast. It's
It's
unbelievable.
difficult
You
to
can watch
control.
it. And I
Wow.
And
mean, a lot of
so
the
what they're
stuff that they do now, you can't control it in the soil. Once it's there, chances are, I mean, it takes years to eradicate it. It's really, really
Yeah,
problematic.
mitigation for that is not very successful. And so what happens is if that happens, if you get almost an entire field wiped out by Phytophthora, there might be a handful of trees that survived. And so you say, you know what? Somehow that tree survived. I want to produce progeny from that tree because something in that tree's genetics has made it resistant to the impacts of the Phytophthora fungus. That's often what cross-pollination is for, is you want those kinds of characteristics that you've seen expressed in individuals. And you want their progeny to have those traits and characteristics too.
And that's the same thing that happened with Dutch elm disease. They found the ones that
Yeah.
survived, and that's how we now have the repopulation of elms in the United States. I didn't even think about that. That's awesome that, you know, there's actually some survivors and they're able to breed for that genetic survivability. That's super cool.
Right.
Awesome. Well, talk to us
So,
about the harvesting. Like, tell
yeah,
us
that's what I was
how.
just gonna ask. So, what's the process for that?
So it depends. Actually, in the U.S., we're at about a quarter, somewhere in that 25 to 28% range of all trees that are purchased are done so as a cut your own
Mm,
farm.
wow.
So people go out and
Really?
they literally cut down their own tree. Most people call it a choose and cut. Some people call it a cut your own. Some people call it pick your own, whatever your regional variation is. Yeah, that accounts for about a quarter of all trees purchased. The rest have to be pre-cut and then shipped off the market. And it is a intense 3-week process. In most places where that happens, it's cold. You don't tend to get a lot of wholesale growing in warmer areas. So they grow a lot of trees in the South, but not wholesale.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
you have to send a harvest crew out, and that it's basically guys with chainsaws. And what'll happen is in the fall, they actually go out and walk the fields before the harvest, and they'll put little colored ribbons on every single tree. And that tells the harvest crew, blue ribbon, cut, red ribbon, cut it. They grade them. So there's premiums and there's grade 1s and there's grade 2s. Sometimes it's coded for which loading yard they want to go to. All of them then have to be baled. So there's a big machine that pulls the tree trunk first through this funnel shaped thing. And inside there's a rotor that runs twine all the way around the tree. And when it comes out the end, it looks like a closed up umbrella that protects the tree. It keeps it from getting damaged. And it also slows down the rate at which it loses moisture. So it can help with its keepability. But it also makes it so that you can get more in the truck. And instead of 400 in a 53-foot semi tractor trailer, you can get 900 in a semi
Oh,
trailer. So your cost to ship per tree goes way down when you
sure.
bale them real super tight like that and you get more in. And they're sent to market. And so a wholesale operation will have customers potentially all over the place. Sometimes people will call me in, say, the second week of November and say, I think we're going to sell some Christmas trees this year as a fundraiser. What do I do where can I buy trees? And I say, well, the
Like,
first thing to do would be start next April.
yeah.
Are they really sold that far in advance that crops
Yeah,
are
many of them.
expected?
Yeah.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, it's not impossible to find some last minute supply, but you're really better off starting in April, contacting wholesale suppliers and
Wow.
getting your orders in.
So the Boy Scouts, they're working years in advance for all of their stuff, like all the Boy Scout Christmas tree farms that we have here in the Midwest, I feel like.
Potentially in many metropolitan areas, there will be a two-stage distribution process. So there'll be one or more companies that are really, in the strictest sense, distributors. So they buy wholesale supplies from multiple suppliers, bring them together into one area, and then parcel them out into smaller units to nonprofit groups or churches or fire stations even sell trees as fundraisers sometimes. So it's hard to call up a farm and say I'd like to buy 300 trees because that's not even a half of a load.
Mhm.
So if you need, like, say, a box truck of a couple hundred trees for a fundraiser, it's better to use that a connection to a two-stage distributor in that way.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Dude, when I was a kid, my uncle owned a delicatessen in Cincinnati, Ohio, and every Christmas they would get, I don't know, a couple hundred trees, and they sold them. And it seems, and of course, we've all seen a Christmas Story where they go off to the Christmas tree and he negotiates with the guy. But it seems to me, and maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like the little guy with 20 to 50 to 100 trees, I don't see those so much anymore. Maybe it's because of where I live, but I really don't. Is
I
that
think
true?
in a lot of urban areas you can find those because there's not a lot of space.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
the inhibiting factor really is space. I mean, if you get 1,000 pre-cut trees, that takes up a lot of space and you
Yeah,
have to
that's some room.
secure them. So you have to put fencing up, you have to have lighting, you have to make sure
Mhm.
that they're not going to dry out. So inventory management can be a real issue, especially if you don't have a lot of space to work.
Sure. What so, they've been harvested, they've gone through, sounds like multiple levels of distribution to get to the Christmas tree lots. The Christmas tree gets purchased. How would you describe the best process for maintaining a Christmas tree
Mhm.
for life, like Christmas?
Really, really only two steps, and it doesn't need to be more complicated than that. So much like you would for if you're going to put some flowers, cut flowers into a vase, you want to snip off the bottom, right? You want to do the same thing with a tree. It's a plant. It's the same. It's the same system of uptaking moisture. And so you want to saw a thin disc off the bottom. Doesn't need to be a lot. A quarter inch is fine.
Wow.
And some people describe it as if you don't, there's a layer of sap that forms over the cut end of the trunk, and that's true to some extent, but really the enemy is air because the way it moves water molecules up through the layers that it does, known as the xylem layer. You're probably familiar with that, Julie. It works much like a siphon system. And the enemy of a siphon system is air. And so when air gets into that plant tissue at the cut surface of the trunk, it can inhibit its ability to move more water up into its system. So if you just saw the thin disc off the bottom, that removes that plant tissue that has air in it. And it really reprimes it. And then just put it in water. Um, most trees will go dormant long before they're harvested.
Mhm.
Late summer, that's what we're talking in September. And where it gets cold, they also describe a process known as hardening off. And what happens is that tree will actually push all of its moisture down into its root system so that it doesn't get freezing in the foliage and the plant tissue that's left exposed to the really cold air. That has to be undone. So when you bring it into your home and it's 73 degrees because you got the heat on, it could take up a lot of water to replace that moisture that it pushed down back in September when it went into a state of dormancy. So I always tell people in the first 2 days, generally, it's going to take up a lot of water. So don't neglect it. the first couple of days. That's really critical. And then after that, it'll just sort of probably start taking up a normal amount, consistent amount day to day.
Hmm.
So
And I'm assuming that, the old wives' tale that you put a handful of aspirin in the water is not legit.
I've never heard that one before. I've heard like 7 Up. I've seen some of the additives that people do, but sugar water I've seen, but
Yeah. I had an
aspirin?
aunt who used to say,
Ugh.
"You gotta take a handful of aspirin," and
What
I'll
I don't
tell you,
even know what the heck would
I'll
that
tell you a
do? I
quick
don't even know.
anecdote. When I first started working for the association, I mean, this is more than 25 years, wait, probably as far back as 2000, maybe even 1999, I had already started answering emails. Back then, the common way for people to ask questions was by email. And I heard all these crazy things that people would add to the water. Is it okay to add this to the water? Is it okay to add that? And I remember going to one of my very first meetings of the Christmas tree growers, and I was describing this to this grizzled old tree farmer. I mean, this guy had probably been growing trees for 40 years, I mean, he looked the part, beard, flannel shirt, of the whole
Sunburned,
9 yards.
windburned,
And so
everything.
I was describing to him the things that people ask me if they should be putting in their trees water. And he looks at me and he says, that don't make any sense to me. That tree spent 8 years out there in my field drinking nothing but rainwater. People get it in their home and think it suddenly needs a 7-Up. I never gave that tree any 7-Up the whole time I was growing it. Why would they think that?
That's
That
fantastic.
stuck
I
with
love that.
there
that
you
stuck with
go.
me all of these years.
That's so funny.
Yeah, there's nothing that's going to make the tree hold onto its needles and uptake water any better than just plain water. Most things won't harm the tree, but there's no scientific evidence that they actually help the tree. And there are
And
some
and
things
the
that people have suggested that can actually harm the tree. I
Oh,
remember
really?
one time I'll tell you another quick anecdote. I had a news station, a TV reporter call me one time and say, I've heard there's a new trend, this new thing going around where people are supposed to add vodka to their trees, to this tree stand for their Christmas trees. And I want you to confirm that that's a good idea. And I said, you know what? Let me see if I could track this down. So I found out that the oldest or most original source was a guy in Colorado told a TV station that he put vodka in his trees water and his tree lasted a really long time. And that was the source. Well, this guy was a dentist. He didn't know anything about Christmas trees. He probably tripped and fell and accidentally put vodka in his
Somewhat.
trees. And so, and that's an example where alcohol actually is a desiccant. It can actually break down plant tissue. So the other thing is when somebody tells me I put such and such in my tree's water and it lasted a really long time, I don't doubt that. I'm sure that that's 100% true. But what I will tell people is coincidence is not the same thing as causation.
Yeah, very
And
true.
so if you try to replicate that, if you had 10 different trees, all from the same seed source, all from the same field, 5 of them got aspirin, 5 of them didn't, you would not see a consistent variation in water uptake or needle retention between the two.
Is there and you hear all well, you cut it this way, you do that, but yours is saying a flat disc cut half inch and you're
Yeah,
good.
flat disc, it doesn't increase the surface area. It's the xylem layer. It's just below the bark. So even if you cut it at an angle, it's still the same circumference. It's still the
Mhm.
same amount of plant tissue.
Are there certain types of stands that people would recommend these days?
That's a personal preference. The only thing I would tell people about stands is unless you're going to add water a lot, get one that holds a lot of water.
Okay.
Other than that, it's about personal preference. I use one that has a clamp style. I find that easy. Many people like the center pin style. So the tree farm or the retail lot will have a drill machine that drills a hole straight up through the center of the trunk. And then you just set it on top of this pin that's inside a bowl that holds water. That's a personal preference thing. My main thing I tell people about stands is you want one that holds a lot of water. Otherwise, you're going to be adding water a lot, especially the first couple of days.
Yeah.
All right, Rick, here's a question that's near and dear to my own heart.
Oh, here we
Okay.
go.
I have someone in my world who is a firefighter, and he is uncomfortable with live trees because of fire danger. How do you counter that?
Math. It's just plain math. So for years, the National Fire Protection Association, the Association of Firefighters, has put out data that shows first items ignited in a home fire. So if there is a home fire, they go in and say, what was the first item ignited?
Hmm.
The times that they record Christmas tree amount to about 120 per year
Okay.
out of 23 million trees.
Yeah. Right.
So
Yeah.
divide 120 by 23 million, you get 0.0000004%, I think, something like that. And the other thing that's interesting about it is it does not differentiate between an actual Christmas tree and a big green giant fake tree.
Interesting.
So if you don't think that you can get a plastic tree to catch on fire, you are incorrect. You can actually get one to
Yeah.
catch on fire. And the other thing, I just get persnickety when people use the word cause. A home fire was caused by a Christmas tree. I'm not trying to downplay it. It can be a traumatic, bad experience. I get that. I'm not trying to downplay it. But the word cause indicates something to me that is very specific. And a plant can't cause a fire. If somebody is
Spontaneous
smoking in,
combustion isn't a thing.
not in a tree that's displayed
Yeah.
open like that. If
They bred
if
those
somebody's
out.
smoking in bed and they catch their home on fire, do you blame the comforter? So I'm comfortable with people saying there are some important things to do to make sure that the tree, if it gets really super dried out, you bet. But in the 4 weeks you have it in your home, as long as you keep water in the stand, that plant is full of moisture. They're extremely difficult to ignite.
Yeah. Well, thank
Can
you
you
for
talk?
that.
Yeah, that's. I
Maybe
think
I'll
that's
get a live Christmas
important.
tree someday in my life.
Can you talk for a minute about environmental impact of, the growth, the way that they cycle through the good, the positive things? Because you hear people go, "Oh, they're cutting down trees, 20 million trees a year. We're losing," but it's not true with Christmas trees.
Yeah, sure. I mean, a tree farm is an excellent example of biodiversity. Like Julie mentioned earlier, a lot of times they're grown in places you can't actually grow any other crop, at least not one commercially.
Mhm.
And a tree farm's in almost all places, weed control is really just done with mowers. They don't actually want to eradicate other foliage, other verdure that's growing because we're worried about soil retention,
Mhm.
particularly in those areas like Julie was saying that are really super steep. There's not that much topsoil to begin with, and the farmer doesn't want to lose it, so they leave all of the other grasses and stuff growing because they want to have that root system in that little bit of topsoil that they have to retain the topsoil that they have. And you get a tremendous amount of biodiversity on a Christmas tree farm. It's a plant that wouldn't exist if the farmer didn't plant it there. So, I mean, you're talking, if there's 14,000 trees, 14,000 acres, you get about 1,000 trees per acre. That's 1.4 million trees that wouldn't exist unless a Christmas tree farm planted them.
Mm.
Well, I
And
mean,
every
for
single year they're planting more. So because it's a plant, every single year they're planting more. And the other nice thing is at the tail end, because it is a plant, it's a 100% biodegradable. And recycling programs nowadays for plant material are really quite ubiquitous. They're varied, they're efficient. Like where I live, there's a park right down the street. You have to go and take your tree and they chip them up and then you put them into a big mulch pile and people can come back and get the mulch and use them in their gardens. So it's really, in most places, it's really quite easy to recycle your tree. And not to put too fine a point on it, but you can't do any of that with a fake artificial tree because they're made out of metal and PVC plastic, and neither one of those is biodegradable.
You're talking
yeah,
about the
here,
recycling. We were talking a couple episodes ago about in Chicago, the firefighters they'll recycle the Christmas trees, and they dump them into Lake Michigan and Julie
yeah.
for the
So they're
purpose.
actually they're used as shore break for erosion control on the lakes and also habitat formation in the lake itself. So they
Yeah.
will take them and put them as many as they can use along the shoreline to protect from winter storms, and then anything that's left over, they'll chip and mulch. Same thing. But being a firefighter wife, we have a lot of rural fire departments that will collect them at the end of the year and then have a tree burn. And it ends up being a fundraiser for the firefighters. So we've been to a lot of them over my lifetime married to a firefighter.
That's common in shore areas, coastal areas. They use them to do sand dune restoration
Mhm.
and sand dune retention, and that helps control flooding when they get storm surges and stuff. And again, because it's a plant, it biodegrades and it actually encourages the growth of grasses because it returns nutrients to that area. Down in Louisiana, they build giant underwater fences with them where they've cut canals in previous years. They get saltwater intrusion through those canals. And so they actually build fences out of Christmas trees. And that slows the intrusion of the saltwater so that the freshwater marshes ecosystems can be maintained. Yeah, here in the Midwest, I'm an angler. I do a lot of bass fishing. So I'm very familiar with the conservation departments using trees. They tie them onto cinder blocks and sink them in areas, and it produces great places to fish, especially for crappie and bass.
That's
Nice.
awesome.
That's
All right,
cool.
let's change. You have a passion. Oh, wait, Steve. Sorry.
Before you get to the passion project, because that's the last one we want to talk about.
Okay.
Julie and I have a debate about the number of trees that people have in their home. I have one. My wife would like to have two. We have one. Julie, how many do you have?
I don't know. I think I'm like 6 or 7. Why?
Okay.
Why do we always have to make this?
We have to do that.
It bears me.
Rick, what's the ideal number of live Christmas trees a person should have in their home?
Well, let me just get one clarification first. I believe I heard Julie say that she does not currently buy a Christmas tree.
A live Christmas tree. So
Because her
correct.
Okay,
husband
so
for the
so
firefighting.
again, I sound persnickety, and I'm sorry, but you have 6 or 7 giant green toilet bowl brushes in your
That's
home.
right, Julie.
Rick, I love you. You are totally gonna make it that I get a live Christmas tree in my house.
You
I'm
have,
so
you have,
excited.
in my personal opinion, you have 0 Christmas trees, and you
That's
have
right.
6 or 7 Christmas tree shaped plastic decorations that are never going to decompose.
Do
You
you have
can come
do you
back
have a
anytime.
particular when I'm assuming that do you have a preference for the tree that you particularly love having in your home?
No, we've had different species. I'm happy to try different species in different years, and sometimes we like the I really kind of like the skinny ones. And so a grower will talk about taper. Taper is a fancy word for the ratio of height to width. Um,
Sure.
the most common would be like an 80% taper. So if a tree is 10 foot tall, it's 8 foot wide at the bottom. I like them generally in the 60 to 65% taper. So sort of a skinny, more of a narrow conical shape. And so number of trees, it's not uncommon especially for households that are families with young kids, to get a second tree. The common thing would be a small, like a 3 foot tall tabletop tree that they can decorate themselves with their own handmade ornaments, perhaps. And then you can teach them every day you need to add some water, right? So a lot of people incorporate care education and learning skills along with the kids tree. So a lot of tree farms, especially cut your own farms, will tell me they'll sell an 8 foot tree, and then the family will also want a 3 foot tree for the kids.
Neat.
That's
That's
cute.
really
I
cool.
like that.
So you want to get to
Yeah, I want to hear about your passion project because you and I were talking about this when we first met, and this strikes a chord in me. So talk to us about Trees for Troops.
So back in 2005, the Christmas Tree Association some of the leaders of the association decided we should form a C3 charity separately, whose purpose and mission is to do anything that helps improve Christmas spirit. Now, that's a pretty nebulous thing, right? That means different things to different people, and that's okay. Their thinking was that if we could improve Christmas spirit, more people would be likely to buy a fresh Christmas tree each year, as opposed to what some do. So they did so. They incorporated a separate C3 charity, and it's called the Christmas Spirit Foundation. And one of its first projects became, well, we knew already that there were tree farms around the country that were close to a military base. And we knew that every year they took some of their trees to that base and said, here, I grew these on my farm down the road. I'd like you to have some. Please give them to some families stationed here. So the idea wasn't new, but when the foundation formed, we thought, you know what? What if we took some trees from farms not near a base to other bases that are not near a tree farm? What if we could do this on sort of a national scale? And we happened to have a call with FedEx that same year, that same fall. And we threw the idea at them, and they said, you know what? Yeah, we could do that. So this was in September. In 2 months' time, we quickly organized. We got, I think it was 48 different tree farms. We delivered 4,300 trees to 5 different military bases in that first year. FedEx drove them there and gave them out. And we thought, this is crazy. This is never going to catch on. This is probably too big of a thing, and it doesn't really make sense to everybody. But it did. It resonated, and within no time at all, we had tree farms all over saying, I want to give some trees to that. And we had bases calling us saying, we'd like to give out some trees here. And so now it's become this flagship program of the Christmas Spirit Foundation. It's called Trees for Troops. We are now in our 20 years now, we have provided over 326,000 free Christmas trees to military bases all over the world.
Love that. Love that so much.
Is this something that people can make donations to? Is it something that
Yeah.
okay.
That's a great question, Steve. Yeah, so the foundation, this program, it's funded entirely by individual donations and a handful of sponsors. sponsorships. So on our website, treesfortroops.org, there's a donate button. And just to give you an idea of the logistics, which I'm sort of right in the middle of right now, is I think we're going to get close to 17,000 total trees donated this year. Those are coming from a little over 300 different farms across 26 different states. They have to be all gathered together in 53 pickup locations where FedEx goes and loads them onto trucks. And then they're going to end up at 94 different bases across the U.S. And that all has to happen in a 10-day period.
Wow.
Oh, man.
You almost like that's Santa level delivery logistics. I have to say, like, you should start growing your beard out now, maybe a little
Yeah.
gray. You could be his right-hand man because that is serious level logistics of making that sort of stuff happen.
One of my favorite things is sometimes people will say to me, well, what do you do the other 50 weeks out of the year, Rick?
Well, I'm glad you have
And
that
I'm like,
fishing and camping vacation to relax and you're ready for your season.
actually, it takes all year long to actually plan this thing and to make it work. And I'm doing all of the last minute stuff right now. We're just about done with the routing plan. And I'll send out confirmations to all the pickups locations and bases next week. And then the Monday after Thanksgiving is when we start picking up the trees. So December 1, most of them will be delivered that first week. And then we'll do the last deliveries on December 11 or 12. Yeah, 94 different bases are going to get trees this year.
And I just want to I want to repeat this. The website is treesfortroops.org.
Yeah.
Treesfortroops.org.
Yeah.
So if you're watching this and you want to make a donation, please go to treesfortroops.org.
And follow our
trees,
socials.
FOR, right?
ORG. Yeah. Like I said, the foundation is a C3 charity. So if you still do the long form, I guess you could take a tax deduction. And follow us on socials. Our socials are very, very active. I realized pretty quickly when I got involved, I was involved with it from the very beginning, way back in 2005. And it's a story I love to talk about. But one of the things you realize right away is really we're in the storytelling business. The more times we can tell this story, the more stories we get in and share, the more people get involved, and the more support that we get. It's amazing. There are some of the pickup locations, they get their whole entire communities involved. They'll have hundreds of volunteers come out and help them load trees. And every single tree has a special tag, at least one special tag attached to it. It's a 4x6. It's made out of Tyvek. I think it has to be weatherproof, right? And it has an area on it where you could write a personal message with a Sharpie. And every single tag has at least one personalized thank you message written by somebody, either the farm that donated the tree, or sometimes they'll have local VFW groups get involved. They'll have local school groups get involved. And so when the person on a base gets a tree, they take that tag off and they're like, oh my goodness, somebody actually took the time to write a personal note on it. And it could be something generic, like just thank you for your service. Sometimes it's something personal, like in honor of or in memory of. But neither way, the person gets that and they're like, oh my gosh, look how many people, this came all the way from Michigan or this came all the way from Pennsylvania. And they realize how many people got involved, and it makes them feel more. It makes them feel like they're thought of. It makes them feel like people actually give a darn. People went to enough trouble to get me this beautiful Christmas tree in a time when it can be really hard for folks stationed at a base far away, often from where they grew up. We get feedback from families all the time that says, this is my very first Christmas tree. This is my first Christmas away from home. Now I'm not so homesick. Last year, I had a guy email me and he said, I was in the Navy for 30 years and now my daughter's active duty. She just texted me a picture of the tree she got from you guys. I wanted you to know that I'm so happy you made her feel a little less homesick. That's 2 generations of people that have served our country that we've helped improve. So I say our mission is to improve Christmas spirit. This program does that. And I know it because people tell us. I know we have a positive impact because people tell us. We're in the storytelling business, and
That's awesome.
That's amazing. Again, trees, FOR, not the number for it, treesfortroops.org.
Yeah. Or if you go to Facebook or Instagram, just search for Trees for Troops. We're pretty easy to find. We're very active on socials. You can find lots of stories that we share. When we start getting pictures in, those are really good. So yeah, it's a great program that achieves its mission. It's a lot of work, but it's a labor of love, as I like to say.
It's crazy when your hobby or the good deeds you do take up as much of your time and more of your mind because of the care you put into it. But that's
Yeah.
great. Thank you so much. Before we go, Julie, what do we got coming up next?
So our next episode is actually how to host the best holiday party possible. So Steve and I both are active cooks and have had many, many years of experience and have done a ton of research. So we're going to share some of the things that we've learned over how to create just again that Christmas spirit. It's another way that you can share that Christmas spirit, you know. So I hope that you can be here to join us. But Rick, I can't thank you enough. You know, you are spot on that we are in the business of storytelling. And that's why Steve and I started this podcast. You know, it's to talk
Yeah.
about and celebrate the feelings that come from this Christmas spirit and the Christmas season. And thank you so much for sharing information that I knew that I love hearing about. But also, Trees for Troops sounds like an incredibly special group, and we'll definitely highlight them. So, thank you for your time.
Right.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
No problem. It's
Thank
been
you.
awesome.
Now, and get you a Christmas tree this year.
That's right, Julie.
No more plastic green toilet brush. Is that what you called it?
Yeah. It's a
All
giant
right.
green.
So thanks again for spending some time with us and our special guest, Rick Dungey. Again, please, if you have the time, if you have the opportunity, if you have the capability, go to treesfortroops.org and make a donation. Thanks again, Rick. And we will
Thank
see you
you.
all next time. Thank
Happy
you.
holiday season to you.
Thank
Love
you.
it.